Hey, what's up, everybody? It's your man, Pastor Darrell, and I'm so excited to be with you for another broadcast of I've Got Evidence, where we provide proof from the Word of God that you are called to something greater. I'm very excited about today's episode, man, because I have a pastor and friend who I'll be interviewing today, none other than Kymone Hinds. He is an innovator, a man of God who knows what it takes to lead people to Jesus. And what you're going to hear today, if you grab your pen, if you grab your paper, I promise you, apply the information and it will change your life. All right. So without further ado, let me just give this man a proper introduction for those of you who don't know who he is. Kymone is a pastor and a church planter. He is a veteran youth minister with a passion to disciple the next generation, to be leaders and to achieve their full potential. He is a presenter on youth issues and culture and has led camps, conferences, and mission trips for teens and young adults all over the world. Together with his wife, Karen, they are the parents of three energetic children, Jaden, Janiyah, and Joel. He loves sports, gospel music, anything chocolate. So yeah, he's cool people. He loves reading and playing board games, which he wins all the time. I don't think he really came to my neck of the woods yet on the Scrabble boy and the checkers, but we'll just let it go like that. Listen, Pastor Kymone, he has written several articles that have been published in numerous journals. He is passionate about sharing the timeless truths of God's word in new and innovative ways. And ultimately, y'all, he wants to follow God as he leads people on a new journey. So not only is he on his own journey to follow God, he wants other people to follow God as well. So I like to introduce to some and present to others none other than Pastor Kymone Hinds. What's up, man of God? How you doing?
Man, I'm great, man. After that introduction, I feel a whole lot better.
Oh, man, praise God. Praise God, man. Listen, let me jump right into this thing, man. I like to ask all my guests this question off the bat. Everybody has a nice, eloquent, resume and bio, CV and whatnot. But people try to define people based on what's on the resume. In other words, what have you done? What is your chosen career path? And I don't like to do that. I like to give people an opportunity to tell us who they are, not just what's on the bio, not just what's on the resume. Some people are great preachers, some are great IT professionals and doctors and lawyers, but that's not who they are. Tell us for a minute, Kymone, who are you? Who is Kymone Hinds?
Wow, man. I thought about this question. And first of all, thank you for having me on. I'm excited about being a part of this podcast. Man, who am I? I am, let me say it succinctly and I'll expand on it. I am a product of the church. And that sounds kind of cliche, but man, I was born in New York, grew up in Trinidad. So at 2 years old, my family moved back to Trinidad. And kind of growing up till about the age of 5 in a nominal Christian home with just trying to make it with a new family. My parents were there. And at about 5, I remember the shift happened in our family where my dad kind of said, hey, we're going to start going to church. And man, the day we showed up at that church changed our lives and it changed the trajectory of my life. And man, just kind of seeing how relationships were formed, my understanding of God, my understanding of life, man, just how our family just even had progress with education and stuff. So I'm a product of the church and I'm a lover of the church. Came up to New York after I was finished high school and I studied in a business career, but man, all of my love and all my passion and energy were devoted to working with youth, working in my church as a young person myself, and then eventually accepting the call into ministry so that I could just continue to grow in giving back to God's church. And so I'm a product of the church. I love the church in its purest sense and even some of its, its deficiencies. But man, I'm a product of the church. That's who I am. In fact, I wore this T-shirt today just to remind everyone that I am the church. That's who I am.
Awesome and incredible, man. Yeah, I am the church. I love that. There's a kid song out that says, here is the church, here is the steeple, open the doors, here's all the people.
Hmm.
But I changed up the lyric a little bit, man. It says, here's the church, here's the steeple. If you open up the doors, then here's the church. Too many
Yeah,
people get caught up in saying, the church is about this nice, beautiful edifice. And, we got the fellowship hall and the tight kitchen and balcony and orchestra pit. And we put a lot of emphasis on the building and the edifice when in reality the Bible says that we are the temple of God.
that's
So
right.
we are the church, and sometimes people may not want to even go to your edifice because the church that you're presenting to them isn't really in line with what they want to follow. So I tell people all the time, man, be the church, and then you won't have a problem, or you shouldn't have a problem inviting people to your building, if that makes any
That's
sense.
right. Oh, listen, I think that's probably one of the best ways to say it. Listen, one of the wrong theologies that we've gotten that has kind of put us off course is that the church is a building we go to, or the church is an event that we have, like we had church. Man, both of those are wrong. The church is a body of believers, it's people. And so we can gather anywhere. And
100%.
when we leave the building, we're still the church.
Yep.
And the event is not the church, it's a worship gathering, but it's not the church.
Yeah, 100%, man. You talked about being a product of the church and whatnot. How was it like growing up in a religious home?
Man, I guess I didn't realize it then. I thought it was restricted. I thought there were some things I wanted to do that I couldn't do. But man, at the same sense, it was quite rewarding because you built good relationships with people who had positive things going on. Of course, we got into our foolish stuff as well. But at the core of us, we all knew, okay, there was a center. There's something that kind of grounded us. And you had so much exposure to stuff that now that you take them for granted. Trips that we would take, opportunities to learn, and talents that man, getting up to speak in front of people at 7 years old. I did not know how much of a blessing that was to be able to just articulate and stand in front of people and to face those fears of speaking in public. So growing up in the church allowed talents to be birthed and to be unearthed in me. So that was something that just I valued.
Yeah, praise God. So here's a question then that I have. You're a product of the church. I am as well. To my knowledge, I'm at least a third generation. I happen to be a Seventh-day Adventist Christian, and I'm at least a third generation. My grandfather, my father, myself, and my son as well. Um, uh, and being in the church all the time growing up. It's a thing
Mhm.
that doesn't really happen anymore. As a matter of fact, I'm finding that a lot of young people are leaving the church at an alarming rate.
Mhm.
Can you talk to us for a little bit about why you think they are leaving the church? And then I guess part B to that question would be, what do you think can keep them in the church? See, back in the day, we had different things to keep us in the church, not just our parents telling us to be there. I mean, that's the primary one of the reasons, but now that just doesn't work anymore. Kids, they just not buying it. I don't know what it is. Talk to us about that, man. Why are they leaving, and what can we do to keep them there?
Yeah. Well, as someone who served as a youth minister for so many years, it's a heartbreaking thing to see young people you've invested in and who are so on fire for God just kind of have their fire go out or just see them drift. And I know my father did it. He left at a certain age and he came back. And I know it's something that almost seems like it's a rite of passage for young people going back. They would kind of leave and come back. But now we're facing a generation that is going out and staying out longer.
They're not coming
And
back.
some of them are not returning. Some of them are not returning. I wonder, here is a theory that I'm kind of wrestling with. I'm wondering if one of the things that we have to actually do is to take young people at their age of being on fire and actually release them to start new expressions of church. Challenges we're facing is we're trying to always get young people to conform to the model of church as we presently have. That probably isn't even working for some of our parents. But some people go just because this is what we do. They're loyal to the institution. We're now facing generations that are not loyal to institutions anymore. So I'm not just going because I'm supposed to. Like, I'm a third generation, like I am, third generation Adventist. I'm supposed to go. They're not doing that anymore. And so what we may have to start doing is finding simpler forms of what church is and engaging young people in that at younger ages and blessing them to even detach from what was their home church or what was the traditional forms of church. And man, start Friday night fellowships and Saturday service groups and things that have the elements of what church is supposed to be, but they are doing it in new forms.
Gotcha. And then for my listeners out there who have heard Pastor Kymone and I talk about Adventists and Seventh-day Adventists and whatnot, it's just a denomination of Christianity.
Sure.
For those of you who
Sure.
don't know, we call ourselves Seventh-day Adventists because we believe in the seventh-day Sabbath, from Genesis to Revelation. We're Adventists because we're looking forward to the second coming of Christ, but most importantly, we're Christians.
Sure.
Just as you have Baptist and Pentecostal, Church of God in Christ, whatever, we're Seventh-day Adventists. We're just another denomination that's a part of Christianity. But I just wanted to clear that up because a lot of you all listeners have not heard me talk about that at all. But yeah, that I just wanted to. I didn't want to confuse you with any
Sure.
jargon at all.
Sure.
So now Pastor Hinds talked about the importance of changing the way we do church. I believe that is so critical for us to adopt that model because even when you look in the Bible, and I want you to elaborate on this a little bit, Pastor Hinds, where the method of salvation had to change, even in Bible times, but the message of salvation stayed the same. What I mean by that is, with Moses, the people who were bitten by the snake in the desert, they had to look and live. Right. In Noah's time, they had to get in the boat so they could be saved. So there are several moments that the Bible talks about salvation, but the way to do it was different. And what I want you to elaborate on, Pastor Hinds, is how important is it for us to change up our model or our methods regarding evangelism here in 2016 and even beyond, as opposed to doing it how we did it back in the day in the 80s and 90s and even 2000s, right? 2016 is a different beast altogether. How important is it to make the adjustment so that we can keep people in the church and even bring new people into the church?
Sure. Man, what is the most important thing about what we do is getting people into a saving relationship with Jesus Christ. I mean, that is the bedrock of what we do, man. Lives that are changed, people that are surrendered to Christ. And man, if you read the Bible and you look at the Apostle Paul was so sold out to Christ that he was like, man, I've become all things to all men that I may save some. And so you see Paul kind of going to the home of the Philippian jailer and going to Lydia's house. You see Paul speaking on Mars Hill. You see him just even adapting his methods, even within that time period, people, because his whole thing was, man, Jesus died for this person. Man, I have to make this method relatable to them. And I think that's where we are today. Man, there are people out here who, if we try to take our method and just hoist it on them, it will not be palatable. It's like trying to put new wine in old wineskins. It will burst. And so what we're called to do is take this awesome message of the gospel, contextualize it, and then find new methods so that people will be receptive to meet them where they are. Man, look at Paul. If you want to talk about contextualizing the gospel in the book of Acts, he goes up on Mars. He goes up to Mars Hill. He's interacting with people and he sees an idol and he says, let me tell you about this thing that you have to this unknown God. Man, he's meeting people where they are. And for us to take those principles and apply it today.
Yeah, that's phenomenal. One thing you said that kind of stuck out to me is meeting people where they are.
Right.
How tough is that to do in this day and age. Certain people have preconceived notions about what it means to be a church member. And
Yeah.
sometimes people may come into the church high. A little bit of transparency. I remember being a teenager in church high. I remember after just trying to fit in, man, and just belong. I remember as soon as church was over, being in the parking lot, couldn't wait to smoke a blunt or whatever, and being judged by church members for that. Now I had a reason why I was doing a lot of that stuff, and nobody really cared about the reason. They just knew that here comes this knucklehead smoking. And we have it today where people come into church, maybe they're not the squeaky clean Christian, or at least they're not presenting that image, right? Talk to us about that for a minute, and how you can meet people where they are without being judgmental of where they are.
Yeah, here is a thought that I've been kind of working with. You've been on an airplane before, I'm sure, and a lot of our listeners have. One of the things they tell you, if a plane is going down, that they tell you that if you're sitting next to someone who needs assistance, you're supposed to put your own air mask, you put your own oxygen mask on first before you assist someone else. Because you're not able to assist someone unless you are in a safe position, unless you have settled it for yourself. I think what's challenging for a lot of people in a lot of our churches is they're not gospel shaped and gospel motivated. And so a lot of our members are not outwardly focused on others because they're still trying to save themselves. They still aren't assured of their salvation. And so I don't, someone new comes in with issues, man, I really don't have time to, because I'm still trying to get it together. I don't know enough. I'm not assured of my salvation. And I think one of the things that we have to be really strong on is making sure our people know, man, you are assured of salvation through Jesus Christ. Your oxygen mask is on. So the person who comes in, feel free now to invest your life into them. The person who has some issues, man, their issues won't make you less saved if you rub up against them, because, man, Jesus has settled your salvation once you're in Christ. And I think now it frees me to now be engaged in relationships with people who don't have it all together, and to then extend to them, man, this oxygen mask of Christ's salvation, and to let them know, hey, listen, there are going to be things that we're working through. We all are working through, but my issues don't disqualify me from being saved.
Wow, man, I love that approach to your ministry. It's phenomenal. More people, I wish there were more pastors out there like you. Speaking of pastor, why did you become a pastor?
Man, so my first degree is in something called actuarial science.
Never heard of it.
I know, and so I'm gonna break it down. Actuarial science is the study of risk. Is the people who help calculate your insurance when you get insurance for anything. It's people who help calculate your pension plans and stuff. Got into that. Sorry?
There's a degree in that?
Man, there's a degree in that, and there is, just to be honest, there's a lot of money in that degree as well.
Okay.
And so I did my first degree, came out of school, worked for a year, and that was the most miserable year of my life. I had, in my teens, felt a call to pastoral ministry. I had a lot of things, including math. So I went off to do actuarial science. Did my first year of college, wanted to go off to Oakwood, got discouraged. So I kept on going, finished, worked for a year, making good money. In New York, I was single. But man, I was miserable because I knew this was not what God wanted me to do. When I was working as a part of the church. And so I just eventually surrendered to what God had just been putting on my heart for a while. And so I came into ministry because I wanted to help reach people. I wanted to help strengthen and build up the body of Christ. So that's my reasons for getting into ministry. And really, it was because God had put a healthy dissatisfaction inside of me, spiritual unease, until I said yes today.
Wow, man, I'm just going back and thinking about when God called me to ministry. I was working for the Centers for Disease Control here in Atlanta, in the IT department, and I was in IT for many years, and a lot of money in IT as well. And I just distinctly remember hearing a voice coming home from church one Saturday evening that said, "Write a sermon."
Mhm.
I'm tripping because I'm like, no, because I had plans to do some dirt that night. Like it, there was no sermon writing in me. And just long story short, man, over time, I love how you phrase that. God put a healthy dissatisfaction,
Yeah.
because it's to the point now where I don't even have a passion for IT anymore.
Yeah.
It's crazy how the thing that, and I have to be careful how I say it. I say it fed me when it really wasn't that. It was God who provides all our needs, of course. But
Yeah. Yeah.
the field that He allowed me to get into, He allowed me to go to school basically for free and get all these IT certifications, and IT was very good. And I loved being able to go into companies and build their networks and provide
Mhm.
service for them, and then not having that passion anymore, where all I could think about was ministry. Um, do me a favor, Kymone, talk to a person listening right now who may be vacillating in their spirit with their chosen career path versus the call that God has on their life.
Yeah.
I think it's really important for people nowadays to go boldly in their call, but
Right.
maybe they're struggling with saying, "Hey, well, I'm making six figures over here, and this other thing that you want me to do, God, has my bank account looking like gas prices. I don't think this
Yeah.
is going to
Yeah.
work." Talk to that person, man, who may be struggling with that.
Yeah. Well, the first thing I want to say is I think everyone has to embrace their call by God. I think every person listening to this, whether you are in IT, whether you're working as an actuary, whether you are working white collar, blue collar, whether you're a student in school, man, whether you are just trying to find your way and just figuring, and you have a calling from God. I think everyone has to embrace that. You work where you work, church in the church. Well, every member is a minister. I think we need to expand it and say every member is a missionary. Every Christian is a missionary because you've been sent by God somewhere to impact the people where you live. And I think that would cause us to live with intentionality and open our eyes. Okay, God, who are you sending me to? Where are you sending me to? And what you sent me to do? With that said, I think wherever you are, embrace the call that God has for you, because there's some things that money can't give, like just a peace and a fulfillment of doing what you're supposed to do. When you find what you're called to do, man, you find a peace and a satisfaction that you can't find in money. And it's the same thing if God is calling you to, and I want to use this term, but then correct it. If God is calling you to full-time ministry, man, embrace that call. Although I think all of us are called to full-time ministry, but if God is calling you to um, being in the IT world and reaching out to the people there, embrace that call, because there will be a level of just peace that you won't find anywhere else.
Yeah, absolutely. I love that, man. Peace that passes all understanding. When
Mhm.
you're doing whatever God has called you to do, whatever it is, that's where you have peace. I find people who don't have peace are often not where they're supposed to be. Um, and they're not. I'm not going to say where they're supposed to be, but they're not fully walking in that thing. Whatever it is, they're not going all out.
Yeah.
Now you are a pastor and the lead pastor at the Oak Park Church there in
Mm.
Memphis, Tennessee.
Mm.
But you are also a church planter.
Sure.
I remember planting a church in the city of Conyers, Georgia, in 2008, going into 2009. I'm proud that they're still in existence there. Why now as a pastor, you are getting a salary to
Yeah.
lead, that church, the Overton Park Church.
Right.
But you took it upon yourself, you and your team, to start another church outside of what you're quote unquote paid to do.
Mhm.
Um, why would you do that? Why would you add more to your plate?
Sure. Okay, so this is a little bit of and the name of our church plant is Journey. So let me tell you a little bit about my journey with church planting. I was hired into pastoral ministry in 2003 in Central States Conference in a wonderful small town called Charleston, Missouri. And man, about 2004, I went to a conference called planting a purpose-driven church. Went to that thing, and my mind was blown just about the possibilities of starting new churches to reach new people. I was starting some stuff, looking to get something started in a town called Cape Girardeau, a college town. And right in 2005, got the call. They wanted me to move to Kansas City to be youth director of a conference of churches. So I was coordinating youth affairs for 40 churches across 6 states. Well, man, all throughout that dream of starting a new church didn't leave. Some of the things I was always looking for opportunities, and it just the door never opened. And so around 2011, the end of 2011, I was asked to move to Memphis to pastor a church. And when I expressed my passion for church planting, the director, the president of my conference of churches said, well, we do have an opportunity to plant a church. And that was not something he was going to add to my plate. But because of my passion for it, he allowed me the opportunity to explore it. I would say that's the best way I could say it. And man, just getting on the ground, the thing is what people may call extra work. I mean, that's the thing that's fueled me, because I'm passionate about church planting. I'm passionate about doing new things to reach new people. Have we seen a huge amount of success yet? No. But each and every day, I'm waking up praying and dreaming, okay, God, how can we impact this community? Church planting, man, really is, I tell people, it's like a blind date of ministry. You're set up, you do everything, and you don't know who's going to show up. And you're really always praying, saying, God, send people. And God he sent people to connect with us. When we got on the ground, and we weren't even very overt saying we wanted to plant a church, but God started sending people our way. Just people saying, hey, I heard you're going to be starting a church. I'm interested. Man, there was one guy I connected with on Twitter. I was tweeting, someone retweeted something, he got it and kind of heard about the church plant. He's now one of our leaders. And so God just kind of sent people, and we're just excited about who God is sending. We just want to be faithful to the vision that God has given us to take church along the path of life so that we can share the love of God where people live, work, and play. And it's not using the model of what the church looks like now. It's just saying, man, what would church look like for people in our community? And how can we connect them in that?
Absolutely, man. So the tenets of this podcast is being great, man. Faith, family, fitness, and finance. And I believe that all of those areas are really tied into one, and one person being great. You had mentioned God sending different people. Talk to the person for just a few minutes, if you could, about teamwork, right? Like real quick. So when the Lord had me plant in 2008 going into 2009, it was very tough because I didn't really have a team.
Yeah.
I didn't even know what I was doing. It's almost like 2008, God says, January of 2008, God says, I want you to be a pastor. Later on that year, we go into Bible studies, and in 2009, we launched with a building. But when I say we, it was really me. Like I didn't have a team. I made so many mistakes because I didn't know what I was doing. And I think if a team was in place, we all could have avoided some of those pitfalls. But God still prevailed. Some things in life are caught and not taught, meaning we can learn from the mistakes of others. So talk to that person who may be trying to start a church, trying to start a business, trying to get their money together, just trying to be great in whatever area of their life. Talk to them about the importance of teamwork and having people in your corner.
Yeah. I wholeheartedly agree with what you said. Now, one of the things that I've learned in this venture is I've made more mistakes than I've done, more mistakes than I want to count. And I probably could write a book on what not to do when I'm finished with this. But, it's interesting that God still works through our mistakes, that God still works through, when you don't have the team all together. And I wish that if there was one thing I wish I had done better, and I would advise someone else, is build slower on the front end. Look for teammates. But man, here is one thing that I learned. invest in the people who are committed, like set the commitment bar, let people know what they're getting into, but invest in people who are committed. Sometimes we don't tell people all that we're asking them to commit to. And so we'll get people who'll say, yeah, I'm down. And then when they see what down means, they leave, they really step down. But when you get people who are committed, man, spend your time and your energy with them before you try to go big or go public or go large, man, so that as you're growing, you have a team of people who know what it's all about. You've invested in them and you're doing this thing together, because it's, working on any new venture, it's a very lonely feeling. There's some days you say, man, did I really hear from God? Was this really a God idea?
100%.
Man, what in the world am I doing? And man, there are just sometimes you have to, okay, let me just be honest. I've quit, many days and unquit the next day. So I've given myself permission. Okay, I'm quitting tonight. And in the morning, I'm back at it.
Got it. Okay, so then I like what you're saying. Talk to us for a minute then about sticking power. Like, you can't be great if you always quitting something. Matter of fact, that may be a reason why some people are frustrated in their life right now and in their journey, in their marriage or in their finances or whatever. They start and they stop, start and stop. You have had longevity in ministry. Here you are now, 13 plus years in perfecting the gift that God has placed inside of you, the numerous gifts God has placed inside of you. Talk to us for a minute about sticking power.
Yeah. Man, I heard a friend of mine say it, and I don't know if this, her name is Dr. Paula Olivier. She said, don't doubt in the darkness what God said to you in the light. And that thing just, it's there. You have to always keep fresh in your mind when God called you and the vision that God gave you. And I believe in the early stages of our vision, God gives us confirmation signs. I remember when we were moving to Memphis, just getting our home sold, finding a new home, finding jobs, just everything. God gave us evidence. This is what I want you to do. But man, there have been down times where we go, okay, are we really supposed to be here? And you have to go back to those times to say, okay, we've heard from God. God is calling us here. So you have to remember, go back to the initial stages and the confirmation signs that God gave you. But man, sometimes it just takes, I'm not a person that says, just keep going forever. But I'll say this, just don't quit today. Just keep going one more day. The moment you feel like quitting, just go a little bit longer. And I just know sometimes just going one day longer, a day just changes it. A week just changes it. And you see God show you a little bit of evidence. Yep, you're on the right track. Success is not a straight line. It's a zigzag. It's up, it's down. Just keep going just a little bit longer when you feel like quitting, and you'll see evidence that God is showing you, okay, this is where I want you to be.
I've got evidence. There it is, man. You had talked for a minute about a few moments ago anyway, you talked about how when you were going into ministry and planting a church and whatnot, that you prayed like never before. You have an incredible series that you do on prayer. Will you talk to the listeners about the importance of prayer in our faith walk? We want to be great in faith, family, fitness, and finance. I think the key to all of that is prayer. And since you have a phenomenal series on that entitled Private Practice, talk to the people with your expert knowledge, man, on the importance of prayer in us being great.
Yeah, I'm learning more and more that my strength comes in understanding and acknowledging my weakness. And my weakness is I do not have enough wisdom to do the things God has called me to. And I think for all of our listeners, whatever you're called to do, you will get to a point where you recognize I'm not able to do this. And that's when God has called you to something great. If everything that you feel that you're doing, you can see the talent you have, the wisdom, your experience, and you say, yep, I got it, then you're not attempting something great. But it's only when you go for something that's above your head and it's causing you to stretch beyond your ability, that's when you move into the realm of greatness. And greatness stretches you to say, okay, I don't have the wisdom, so I need to depend on God. And that's where you really begin to tap into God's power. And I just want to encourage our listeners, man, be people of prayer, seeking God's face, not just for what you're asking for, not just to accomplish something, but man, just to seek God's face, just for God alone, because He is His own reward. Like, just, I believe when you seek God, He promises all these things will be added to you. So the things that you're looking for, the goals that you're going after, the business you're trying to start or to take to the next level, man, as you seek God, He brings wisdom with Him, and He allows you to just get clarity in what you're trying to do.
Yeah, man. Seek first the kingdom, and everything else is added
Yeah,
unto you.
everything else. Yeah.
You had mentioned in your bio when we read earlier, and you talked about earlier on in your ministry, you were single and whatnot. Now you're doing what God has called you to do, and God has given you increase.
Mm-hmm.
You have a lovely wife. You have three beautiful children. Talk to us for a moment about how to manage the thing that God has called you to do with having a family.
Yeah. Man, I so wish my wife were here. My wife is she's my balance. I call her the quarterback of our team, because I'm prone to being unbalanced. I'm prone to working too much, and my wife is the one that will remind me, okay, you got to stop. You're not gonna get it all done. In fact, it was Monday. Monday was a holiday, and it's supposed to be my day off, and I'm like, I'm just working on this one thing, and she's like, yeah, one thing will always turn to two. So you need people, and you need to listen to your family members when they tell you, hey, you need to take a break. Because sometimes we tend to minimize, oh, you don't understand. Not, they understand more than you think they do. I think that's one of the things. Just having, I have a wife who's not impressed with me. She's not a fan. She's not a member of my fan club, if I had one. She's someone who will hold me accountable for being a good father, being and that's one of the things I try to be at the events that my children have. That is at least one of the things that I've made as a covenant with them. If there's a basketball game, I'm there. If it's a music recital, I'm there, because I want them to see my face as a supporter. And then, I also want to say this. I think for everyone who is seeking to build something and grow something, you need to have intentional times that you put on your calendar as family times, because so many of us are ruled by our calendars. And if you are someone that's ruled by your calendar, you need to put those things on your calendar that says date night or family. This is a non-negotiable. Like in our home, Friday night is family dinner night. We always do that. And so as a minister, there are things that happen on Friday night, rehearsals, whatever. I just don't make those, because Friday night is family dinner night.
Yeah, that's incredible. So it sounds like you're just saying you have to, you have to use your 24 hours wisely. Like
Yeah.
everybody gets the same 24 hours in a day. How are you using it? And if you don't schedule family time, then it's going to be a problem.
Yeah. But man, you got to schedule. I mean, like one of the things, if you don't, like we say, well, I'm with my family all the time. Yeah, that's fine. But you need to have like carved out time. Like Monday night might be date night, and Thursday night might be the night with this. And here are weeks of vacation. And those things actually help you to give more just attention, even when you have unscheduled times. I think it fuels those unscheduled times to be more meaningful.
And I got to keep it all the way 100, man. Like one of the challenges that I have is even when, my family and we were on vacation last week, and I was still having to do, now I'm still in school trying to finish this degree, and I had to do homework. And, there were times where I was on the phone trying to make an inspirational post on social media, whatever the case may be. And my wifey, she's just looking at me like, okay, so at what point does it stop? And I just think that there are times where, ministry mode has to be all in, but then family mode has to be all in as well, where there are no distractions at all. So I think that's definitely key for anybody who's looking to do something, who has a family and God has called you to do something big, whatever that big thing is. Learn how to manage your family time versus your ministry time versus your prayer time with God, all of that. We just got a couple more minutes here, man. I know we got to let you go soon. A lot of people, one of the challenges that I have in ministry is that I have very, very few mentors For me, I look at a mentor, biblically speaking, like Paul was a mentor to Timothy.
Right.
He saw Timothy and he constantly poured into Timothy. Uh, um, I don't know if Paul found Timothy or Timothy found Paul,
Right.
but I know at this stage of my ministry, I'm looking for a Paul.
Right.
And sometimes it's hard to find that because people are, maybe just busy doing their own thing in ministry with their family, whatever. Sometimes people are, if we just keep it all the way 100 on this podcast, they just, are afraid to pour into the next person for fear like they may lose some credit. Like what, I don't know what it is, like the spirit of competition or whatever. But if you had a mentee, so to speak, what would you tell like a young pastor or a young person trying to go into business or a young person trying to achieve some of the same successes that you have had? Take this moment right now to just mentor somebody real quick. What would you tell them?
Okay. Let me, I'm going to take that moment, but let me just say this real quick. For those who might be looking for a mentor, don't always look for the person who is the super duper successful person. I mean, there are a lot of people out here who have so much knowledge and no one asked them, can you mentor me? And they might be some of your most powerful mentors because they're more available and they have life lessons of success and of challenges. So just to someone who's looking for a mentor, man, I heard this guy, Chip Desart, say you don't just need a sage from the stage. You need a guide by your side, and that's what you're looking for.
Oh, that's dope. I'm gonna use that. I might
Chip.
give Chip some credit. I don't know.
Yeah.
I'm gonna hit him on social media later. I'm gonna tell him I'm
Yeah.
gonna take his stuff.
Yeah.
That's dope. Say it one more time, man. I don't want the people to.
You don't just need a sage. If you want to go to the next level, you need to move from just having a sage on the stage, someone you can see up front. Man, what you need is a guide by your side, someone that's next to you, helping you take the next steps.
That's dope. That is incredible, man. So be somebody's guide right now, man. Be
Yeah.
somebody's guide.
Well,
Talk
man, a
a little
few
more, man.
things. Yeah, I mean, listen. If you're listening to this and you're looking for success, man, first of all, build it on relationships. Build it on relationships. Build it on relationships first of all, as we talk here on this podcast with God. Have a carved out time with God. Have devoted time with God. Build it on relationships with God. Have healthy relationships with your family. And even for people who might be a single person, man, one of the things that sometimes that happen to us when we're going after success, we even neglect relationships like brothers, sisters, parents. I mean, just be balanced in relationships. And then as you are building anything you're building, don't let it be about building an empire. Let it be about building for kingdom purposes. So what I'm doing, how can it help people? How can it strengthen people? Make sure you're always looking at teamwork and how am I lifting someone else? That would be some things I would say. And man, invest in yourself. Read and take care of your health. It's something that I need to do better on. I was running with some people, but man, invest in yourself, reading and learning, but also invest in your health. Like do things to make sure that you're taking care of your temple.
That's 100, man. Listen, I hope you all have enjoyed the podcast today, Kymone. Like your words of wisdom are incredible. I wish we can go on and on. Maybe we can get you on again in the future. Because man, listen, I just believe that some people need to hear what the Lord has put on your heart. I just want somebody out there listening to know that you can be great in every single area of your life. Take the nuggets that you learn in this podcast, increase your prayer life, go big with what God has called you to go into. Don't look at it like, putting more responsibility on you. Like you can't complain that there's a lot on your plate when you ask to eat. Like, so if you want to be great, just go big or go home, and also find that time to balance your prayer life and your family time. I just want you to go in faith, family, fitness, and finance. Kymone, if you had anything else to share with the people, what would that be?
Man, listen, when you said be great, one of the things that I look at and who I consider the greatest person. When Jesus talked about greatness, he says, anyone who wants to be great, let him first be a servant. I mean, greatness is not defined by how many people you have under you that are serving you. Greatness is defined by how many people you serve and you bless. Let that be your mantra. Like, everyone won't be the CEO of a company with people you pointing, telling them what to do. Man, anyone can serve. And if you serve someone today, man, you're great. You've done something great.
You got it. You heard it here first. You want to be great, you got to be a servant. Listen, I hope you got what you needed to get. We're going to be here next week, Wednesday, where we're showing you how to be great in your faith, your family, your fitness, and finances, because I've got evidence from the Word of God that you are called to something greater. Subscribe to our podcast via Google Play Music, iTunes, SoundCloud, the major podcast outlets. You can also catch this on YouTube as well. Till next time, always remember, God has a plan for your life. Go big or go home. Peace.